Mark Paoletta is here. He's a partner at Shaerr Jaffe Associates, who were one of the people behind this argument that led to this Jack Smith case, the classified documents, the raid on Mar-a-Lago, that whole thing. That case was just dismissed yesterday. Mark, grateful you're here. Thank you, sir. We only have about 6 minutes, so we kind of got to get to the chase here. But
Sure.
What happened yesterday? What did the judge decide?
Mike, thanks for having me on. It was a great day yesterday for the Constitution and the rule of law, and a great day for President Trump. Essentially, what Judge Cannon did in this exceptional opinion is to basically go back to first principles, which is that here's this special prosecutor, right, that was appointed by the Attorney General, and Judge Cannon says, hey, let's step back and say, is this person constitutionally appointed? Is he legally appointed under the Constitution? And this originalist jurisprudence of first principles, you go back to the Constitution first before you do anything else. And essentially she says, no, the Appointments Clause, right, which is in the Constitution, a key provision of separation of powers, says that Congress has to establish under law an office, okay? And the question is, and so the Appointment Clause says the president can appoint and nominate with advice and consent from the Senate, or if Congress sets up an office by law, invests that appointment power, like in the Attorney General or a department cabinet officer who can make these appointments, that's okay. Nothing like this happened here. This wasn't a presidential appointment, Jack Smith. It was an Attorney General appointment, okay? And then she looks at all the statutes that the Department of Justice was claiming gave them the authority to appoint Jack Smith, and she concludes, absolutely not. There is no statute that allows for this appointment. So essentially, he's an unconstitutional person. He's a private citizen that the Attorney General appointed. And therefore, as a consequence, this entire prosecution, everything he's done is void and unlawful. And so she dismissed him. Yeah, go ahead.
Because to your point, you can't just have a private, regular citizen walking around charging people with crimes. Right? Which is essentially what Jack Smith is right now. He's been pretending to be this special counsel, but he doesn't have the constitutional authority to charge people with crimes. So who would?
A person duly appointed on the Appointments Clause. Again, one of the things, it's really a beautiful opinion, and it harkens also, it tracks Justice Thomas's concurrence. Right? The amazing thing here is that Justice Clarence Thomas, our greatest justice, wrote a concurrence in the presidential immunity decision on July 1st that raised this issue about Jack Smith's appointment. Okay, and he references, as does Judge Cannon, the fact that in our Declaration of Independence, right, our founders said, this is Justice Thomas, one of the grievances raised by the American colonists in declaring their independence was that the king had erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. And so they wanted to put a check on the king, the president.
Just give a shout out to
people. Go ahead.
No, sorry, that was, I don't know what that was. Sorry. Continue on. Yeah, I love your point you're making. Keep going.
So again, it's the first principle. We look at the founding, our founders set up purposefully this check on the appointment power, okay, and wanted Congress. They say they played a pivotal role in establishing these offices so that the king or the president couldn't willy-nilly say, hey, I'm appointing you to go do X, Y, Z. And you see this in this current lawfare against the president of the United States, where they unleash this awesome power, right? This dangerous power on their target, on the person they want to take down. And so, Judge Cannon does this masterful analysis of looking at the Appointment Clause, how this appointment does not, right, accord with that. This came out of, and I know we have short time, the Independent Counsel statute, which was unconstitutional. When it lapsed, the Department of Justice came up with these regulations that essentially said, hey, the Attorney General can make this appointment. And over the years, Mike, the Supreme Court, even in the Nixon case back in the 1970s, right, when they were looking at special counsel, the Supreme Court just glossed over whether nobody even raised this argument about whether this was a lawful appointment of a special prosecutor. And so you can have special counsels, okay, who are already appointed. You look at David Weiss, right? You look at Patrick Fitzgerald. You look at other I can't remember the other one, but they are U.S. attorneys who were already appointed, appointed by the president, nominated, confirmed, and they got additional powers. Here, as you said, it's a private citizen that gets picked off the street to exercise these awesome powers, and it's just unconstitutional.
Yes.
So.
So unbelievable.
And it shows. Here's the other thing: Judge Cannon has come under tremendous criticism and smears. And I just read the legacy media this morning losing their minds. This is the right decision. Justice Thomas laid it down a couple weeks ago, and it's just it's going back to first principles. So this will go up to the 11th Circuit. Maybe it goes up to the Supreme Court. But right now, this entire prosecution of Jack Smith's assault on the president, illegal assault on the president, is over.
That's amazing. Absolutely incredible. What a turn of events that is overshadowed by other unbelievable turn of events for the last few days. I love the point you made about the king, because I was going to ask you why our founders put this in there, and that clearly is why. So thank you for sharing that. Eric Holder, the former attorney general, said the dismissal of the Dox case is so bereft of legal reasoning as to be utterly absurd.
Wow.
Has to be appealed, and this incompetent judge removed.
And going back to what Justice Thomas, he puts in his opinion again, the powers relative to offices are partly legislative and partly executive. The legislature creates the office, okay? The executive fills the office, okay? That's what the founders did, okay? They didn't create an office of special counsel, of the Congress, okay? And so that's what's happening. The Department of Justice did it on their own, and it's unconstitutional. And it's a beautiful opinion really focuses on our separation of powers.
So my last question for you, we got about 90 seconds. When you first described this to me months ago, I was like, oh, obviously you're right. But it seems like a real Hail Mary of, some detail. And why would the Attorney General's office and the president be so stupid as to have done this and appointed him knowing it was? So I thought it would just be ignored and we'd move on with an unconstitutional thing because we have lots of unconstitutional things. Pretty shocking that this one actually got called out, right?
It's, again, yes. But we're in this new era where judges are not going to be confined to what's gone on in the past, right? I mean, you look at the old Supreme Court, like the Supreme Court of the 70s, right? They didn't care about this stuff. That's the difference here, is that these justices go back to what does the Constitution say? Yes, there are some of these appointments, and I won't, we don't have enough time, but there are different special counsels. Some of them were created by Congress. Some of them had different functions in them. But when you look at So it was just assumed, okay, that they had this power. And so, there were two law professors, Steve Calabrese and Gary Lawson, who raised this actually with respect to Robert Mueller, and it's been kicking along. And now, boom, it comes back in this case because Jack Smith is an unconstitutional appointment, okay? And the Justice Thomas, which is what he's been doing for 33 years. That's why he is our greatest justice of all time, our greatest living American. Yep. He doesn't care what the past Supreme Courts have said, in terms of what is the right answer under the Constitution. Judge Cannon,
we got to run. Okay. Mark, we got to run, but I apologize. So grateful. Thank you for explaining and celebrating Mark Paoletta right there. Just perfection. Trump dodges another bullet. I love it. Spread the word.
Thanks, Mike.